Hello everybody, welcome back to From Rhythm to Algorithm. We continue on with our derivation. What is sensorality? What does sensorality stabilize? What is continuity? So going through the big ideas that are present at my mind, like literally as I sit down, and then going through the derivation steps that I have derived over the past 24 hours or since the last video. And so we have discrete things, namely in linguistics, a syllable, this fundamental unit of irreducibility. If you spell a word, they'll say sound it out. And by sounding it out, you're executing syllability. You're seeing what can be a syllable, right? Sensorality. 5 syllables, we're looking to show that iteration. The syllability is fundamental, the syllability is irreducible. It is already independent of language, right? A syllable is the fundamental unit of sound, regardless of what language you are speaking. And so we're looking to use that fundamentality, that irreducibility, that elementality of syllability, sensorality, and have a theorem, a sentence, a statement that uses up that syllability. In the same way you divide numbers all of a sudden, but like 4 divided by 3, right? It's not you don't get a whole number result, right? 3 goes into 4 one time, you have 1 left over, you have 3 and a third. And so we're doing that process linguistically. And so we're going to have completion within syllability, meaning this syllable pairs to this syllable. It'll be a well-defined word, a structure of language that you already use. And we'll have a remainder, and that remainder will be the word form, the syllability for the next axiomatic derivation. And so with this fundamentality, with this elementality, with this discreteness, fundamental units, elements are discrete. And then it's worth acknowledging immediately the conceptual dichotomy of the word discrete. Right, independent objects or inconspicuous, something that is not easily seen, easily perceived, and the spelling is the direct iteration of the E in the T. And so just worth pointing that out, but sticking with the physical, the fundamental physical part, not he's moving on, he's low key, he's discrete. No, he's on the sly, he's discrete. No, he's discrete like an independent object. And so, what is the role of continuity? We've addressed this or brought up this dichotomy before, continuity and consistency. Right? We've proven the consistency of meaning, of conceptualization. This fundamental syllable is associated to this sound. And so what is a syllable to a sound? I would say a syllable is a structured sound and just a unit of meaning. That is what a syllable is. And so if I say the sky is blue, you can't hear anything else. Maybe I've made that to be a code word, I've used cryptography, but those words have meaning, it's a well-defined thing, it's literal, it is directly associated to a physical process. And so that is what I'm saying is like sound is irreducible, syllability is irreducible, meaning is irreducible. So if I say the sky is blue, you can't hear anything else conceptually. And so how does continuity emerge? How does consistency emerge? What do those words mean when our actual physical things are independent, discrete objects? Our fundamental physical dichotomy, our stabilized dynamic, the atom composed of the electron and the proton, right? And then we have the atmosphere, very literally built on the definition of what an atom is. And so what is not atmospheric is space, right? The absence of matter, of mass, of thing is space. Then logically, right, space is nothing. Literally the word no thing. Space is no thing. Space is nothing. And so now we're even taking into consideration spacing, right? Our letters, right? We have discreteness. We represent these meanings independently. And I can talk really fast and you can hear me. I can talk slow and you can hear me. You can't reduce this syllability. And so just thinking of anything that comes to mind for continuity, consistency, the syllability is consistent. We've said that languages are distinct. You can tell when one, but again, Danya, Vod, or Bod is the example I like to use. Again, what really separates two really similarly close languages? Is it a differentiation worth having? Just stuff that comes to mind. But they are distinct. You can tell when someone's speaking one language, but what establishes that distinctness? Like how much syllability do you have to introduce? Do you have to say a whole sentence, one single word, what establishes a language as distinct? But moving along, we have space is nothing. That is a big step. And then we're, again, taking that consideration into our theorems, right? The things I put on the screen are theorems. I've already completed this entire analytical process, which is extremely relevant to say, not because it's saying, look at me, but to say the parts of the proof or the derivation that we're not at yet have already been validated and proven. And so it's like saying, again, before people know what addition is, you have to, again, prove what addition is. But then after that, it's just like, we're at a point where the entire process of analysis has been demonstrated. And so we have atmosphere, space is nothing, and we're looking for, or we're going to develop into, or taking that consideration into, again, the structure of our sentences, the letters representing the meaning behind, I want to say behind the words there, but like, again, trying to be specific, syllable, word, sound, and not just use any sort of filler verbiage. But moving along with our derivation steps. Continuous is continuosity. Continuosity is continuity. That is a natural definition. Is viscosity continuous? Is connection continuous? What is a precedent to an antecedent? So, pointing this out in our book club episode yesterday, right? A precedent, a basis, right? This is unprecedented. This has never happened before. A precedent is a basis, and then linguistically, the structure of precedent is similar to antecedent. And if I said, I have an example here. Sean Carroll is a criminal. He steals all of Brad's work. He lies. He goes to Johns Hopkins, or as he likes to say, just Hopkins, right? And so we have an example of a construction of verbiage, which again, why he's not in prison is beyond me. But anyway, all right, Sean Carroll is the subject. It's our focus. It is the sentence. And then we use the word he after that. And so he is a pronoun representing Sean Carroll. Sean Carroll is the antecedent, the basis of what we are talking about, the thing that is being represented by this linguistic variable he or she. I'm not sure which one Professor Carroll's pronouns are. And so, again, pointing out the precedent and antecedent, structurally similar, and again, another example of chronology throughout linguistics, and ultimately that's how we're proving sensorality, is this direct iteration of syllability, which is a chronological consequence already present in some part of known ontology. We're just on our quest. Are syllables syllogisms? Sensorality is syllogisticality. Syllogism is logic, and that is a natural definition. So again, not log is built on logic. It's all the same base thing, right? Anthropology, morphology, archaeology, right? That the irreducibility, a well-defined thing of logic being formalized in our ontology. And then ontology. Affluence is influential, right? Fluency is influential, natural definition. Affluence is influential. I'm sure people would agree with that one. Again, there's nothing to agree with or disagree with, putting some paste to a YouTube commentary over fundamental derivation. Nice. Influential is consequential. Fluency is sequential, right? Is this person fluent? Can he speak Spanish or French or German or Hindi? Can he construct a sentence, right? That's sequentiality. You're putting words in order. Right, so knowing what to say is chronology and chirality. Because again, when you're sitting there pausing, it's like, how do I conjugate? Right? Conjugation is chiral. You're preserving pronunciation, which has this inherent flipping, and the same way your eyes flip the input to your brain. It's a consequence of geometry that is present in all anatomy, which is present in linguistics. Sensorality is sequentiality. Orality is sequential. What is fluency to orality? So now to the structure of the title of the last episode, sufficientiality. Right, that's the pronunciation in English, in which, again, a language is a consistency of resonance. I even had it at the end, might as well talk about it now. Right, if I were to pronounce that word, right, sufficiency. English is this preservation of resonance. Right, if I said ciencia, you would say that's Spanish. But wait a second, that's not Spanish. Right, ciencia would be en español. And so we have this natural, even if you speak, like I'm presenting in English right now, so I'd have no problem slurring and sounding, super non-native in speaking other languages. I can articulate as again, speech pathologist extremely articulately any of the sounds, including not just human ones, on record. That's not me just saying random shit. But the point being is if I say ciencia, it's not really one language. But the syllability, again, horseshoes and hand grenades, the syllability is what's fundamental. And then people have enough experience of spelling, they can literally visualize the shapes of what you're saying. So if I say ciencia, and you're following what I'm saying, you've just proven that languages are not fundamental, right? Because it's not even a consistent language. Ciencia would be Spanish. And then sufficientiality, she and she all, would be the preservation in the English language. And so regardless, we have this construction of linguistics, these letters, that certainly looks like ciencia en español. See, I just did it again, en, not ain. But again, a language overall is this preservation of resonance. But you don't need to have that. You just needs to be close enough. And so back to this serendipity of life, this general relativity, this level of association, what means what is pretty, I don't want to say random because it's not, but it's not like this is where science and learning is not a linear progression makes sense, right? Does stuff happen in a certain order? Yes, absolutely. Is that order all of that relevant? Does it matter really if you drink a glass of water or you eat a banana first, right? If you're having a meal and you eat the banana first or you drink the water first, does it really matter? Does salad come before the entree or after the entree? Look again, now we're using a French word. We're not even in English. What language are we speaking? Right? And so what was I saying? Saying a lot of things. But the consistency of syllability, meaning pronunciation, establishes a language. But syllability is the fundamental part. And then if you're just close enough, people, if they have enough conceptual background, they know what you're talking about. I was talking about the association of meaning to the actual sound, to the syllable. Kind of lost my train of thought. I'll put some editing on there, put some what I was just saying. But regardless, this chronology. So the association where there was an order, the banana or the glass of water, and it's not really a meal, but it doesn't really matter, right? There was an order to it, right? If you said, hey, I ate a meal, what did you eat first? That information is kind of irrelevant. It's sufficiently inconsequential. And so in terms of what words mean what, there was an order to them, but it sufficiently doesn't really matter. And that's why you have all of these loan words. That's why we say entree. That's why we say restaurant. That's not even an English word, but we don't even have like a substitute word for that. I'd say that's one of the best examples. Restaurant is 0% English. And then what do you say besides restaurant? Food store, shop thing. No, you say restaurant. Again, just highlighting this association of sound to meaning is pretty serendipitous, pretty haphazard. There is a chronology, but the chronology is pretty inconsequential for the vast majority of everything. And so, meaning, why is ciencia, sufficiency, efficiency, why does that look like a Spanish syllability? Does that mean Spanish came first? Overall, does etymology really matter? Again, to me, it's like archaeology, where it's like it certainly happened in order. If you can garner or glean or determine what was first, worthwhile, absolutely worthwhile academic endeavor, consequential into day-to-day life, 0%. And so, meaning I don't think you're just born into a world where sounds are associated to meanings and I cannot provide you, right? I don't think Spanish is certainly not the first language, but does that even kind of conversation make sense? It makes sense, but it's more, we're immediately into like archaeology more so than like analysis. I don't know if I articulated that well, but moving along. but ciencia, gracia, science, es ciencia. And that is a natural definition, again, connecting the English word to the Spanish word, but the fundamentality of the syllability, the sound to the syllable. Sufficientiality is scientificality. Sensorality is sufficientiality. Again, stressing the syllability because, again, we're showing the iteration of sensorality. And then we had, I forget the last logical renormalization. But whatever it was, now it's she-and-she-ality. Sensorality is she-and-sheal. She-and-she-ality. Emphasizing again that she, which is, right, special, that ci, worth emphasizing. Sensorality is provinciality, like a province. Sensorality is providence. Providence provides. Natural definition, right? Why does Canada have provinces and not states? What is a province to a state? What is domain to sovereignty? Sovereignty. Providence provides. Providence is sovereign. What is providence to evidence? Sensorality is referential. Filtrationality, referentiality. Referentiality filters. That is a natural definition. Filtered is sorted. Again, emphasizing sorted spells out the word sword with a T. Sore filter. Sorted is stored. That is a natural definition. So if I said, what is, from all this analysis, if you're one of the people following this, what is sensorality intuitively? Inanimate filtration, yes. Life, yes. Behavior, filters. But is sensorality a process or a function that stores or sorts? Or is it a difference? And we're getting to this point of fundamental conceptual differentiation, right? Storing is not sorting, but stored is sorted literally. And that is a direct iteration. Is filtration rhythmic? As I believe, I want to say it was Little John, he once said, shake it like a salt shaker, which provides another interesting physical conundrum. Should you, as he put it, I think it was Little John, shake it like a salt shaker? Sally by the seashore shaked the salt in the salt shaker. And see, this is where tongue twisters come from, is differentiating syllability, right? So how does quantum field theory predict the set of all tongue twisters? A phenomenon, empirical evidence independent of one language. It's fundamental differentiation of syllability. But should we shake it like a salt shaker, messed it up a little bit, or as $, or nah? Not really super relevant references, but I threw it in there. But point being is, if again, back to where we're trying to dump our spaghetti out of our box, that is a geometric, we have a curved object, we have some sort of closure, a cylinder coming out of a rectangle. But a salt shaker, right, is it optimally efficient to shake randomly the salt shaker, or like, again, how do you get the particles of salt or pepper out of your shakers the most efficiently? And even kind of recently, I saw people take, and this is what I do, but like if you have like a pepper grinder, and then you like do this twisty thing, even if you take your salt shakers from your table and just like grind the cap. I saw that on one of the little, I don't have TikTok or Instagram, but somewhere through social media, and that definitely seems to work. But just in general, what is the optimal way to filter things, right? Should we shake it like a salt shaker or not? Reality is referential. That is a natural definition. Sensorality is blatant. Sensorality is flagrant, not Andrew Schultz. Sensorality flags. Obvious is conspicuous. Discrete is inconspicuous. Again, that fundamental dichotomy that you've definitely seen before me, discrete versus discrete, independent object versus inconspicuous. Sensorality is conspicuosity. Sensorality is spicuosity. Sounds like something you might say to somebody on the border. Huh, that's racism. Sentience is sensory. Sentientality is sensorality. She-and-she-ality is sentientality. So again, you can clearly see this iteration of C and S and we're going to show it uniquely. What is sensorality, reducing the syllability, stabilizing our working definition amongst all of other ontology? All of this analysis really proves its consistency. Effectively, what we're doing is, again, you've never seen somebody prove the consistency of addition before. We're proving the consistency of linguistics, which is a huge, massive step up. But proof is proof, and we carry on. Scientiality is sentientality. Sensorality is sensory energy. So now we can restate the fundamental theorem of physics slang, right? What is energy? What is energality? Sensorality is energality. Energality is generous. That is a natural definition. What is consistency to questioning, right? He's down at the precinct. We're going to give him a line of questioning. We'll actually use a real example. Hey, Brad, your neighbor threatened to kill you and we don't believe you. So what car was he driving? I think it was gray. Well, and then I'm thinking, well, was gray silver or is it closer to white? And then I say it's like white. And he's like, oh, see, your story's inconsistent. Nope, I was just sitting on my driveway one day and my neighbor, who was threatened to kill me multiple times, drove past me, flipped me off, and he has like a big family. And so it was like one of his brothers or something. Again, truly, truly a weird, endangerment of my life and direct violation of the law. And so, but, right, what is consistency to questioning? If you're, right, when you question somebody, specifically like in an interrogation, you're looking for inconsistency, right? As the great poet, I think, Mark Twain once said, or somebody throughout history, right, if you're not lying, you don't have to remember shit. And so when people are questioning, or if you have inconsistency in a story, people are just kind of like, what is this dot? Like, what's the stick? Like, what's the ploy? What's going on here? Naturally, because the vast majority of all people who aren't doing dumb shit or anything aren't thinking about anything. You're just kind of existing. When's the next hot dog coming up on the grill? Who's playing at the sports game? But what is consistency to questioning? Sensorality is consistent. Again, back to our fundamental physics as opposed to the emotion. But what is consistent when we have discrete things? Right? Radiation is continuous. Radiation is consistent. Sensorality is continuous. Is generosity continuous? Is generosity conditional? Right? Unconditional love. Nope. Everything is dependent on other things. True independence doesn't exist. Everything's connected, but nothing is touching. We're all in this together. Everything is conditional. Again, none of the questions are philosophical. Philosophy doesn't exist. We ended that like several episodes ago. But actually, words don't exist to describe conceptualization past what we've proven. Proof. This is proof. Math class. You guys don't even know what that is. Sensorality is conditionality. Conditioning trains. Climate control is air conditioning. Well, I guess more so air conditioning is climate control. But then again, the reason I just changed that or said that differently is back to this exclusivity, right? Chronology is exclusive. It's not mutually exclusive, right? Things happen one way. And so, right, all air conditioning is climate control. Not all climate control is air conditioning, right? That's another meaningful step. Sensorality is conditioning, right? You go training is conditioning. Gonna run the stairs at Hoover. Contradiction, condition. What is solution to resolution? Right, the pronunciation's kind of same linguistics, same word construction. Pronunciation's a little different. But when you're saying resolution physically, what are you saying? Literally, resolution. A solution is dissolve. Right, a solute is the base of a solution. But actually, a solvent is the base of a solution, right? The solvent dissolves the solute, but solution is based on the syllability of solute. Another one of these things directly wrong. Inelastic collision means, and now again, inelastic means it's not deformable. Everything is elastic. The complete transfer of what you guys call kinetic energy is momentum, and it's never completely conserved. Oh, you guys are so far behind in science class. It's actually problematic. It's actually destroyed my whole existence. But again, that directly, a solvent is the base of a solution, but the base of solution is solute. That's a problem. Sensorality circumvents. Sensorality beats around the bush. And our last kind of steps, again, there's no end to this, right? Things are going to keep going. I'm going to die one day, whether it's in 5 minutes from a car accident or 50 years. And this iteration process, this derivation, derive and analyze, realize, is going to keep happening indefinitely forever. So there's no end to derivation. Concentrating is limiting. So what we're doing is, again, we're centralizing what is sensorality. We have a clear proof, progression, analytical process, but it's this process of limitation, right? How fast can you go? We have a speed of light, but how many things can you remember? It feels sufficiently infinite, and it is sufficiently infinite. And so what we're doing linguistically is contraction, is limiting. We're forcing a natural definition. How is this word used most specifically, definitively, in relation to other words? What is sensorality? Concentration condenses. What is condensation to contraction? And again, from physics proper, so to speak, which I am physics proper, 10 toes, trap scholar, Brad is physics and history all in one. But we have Bose-Einstein condensates. We can't have our fermions, Professor Carroll, collapse in on other fermions. Space is nothing. Things have definite densities. They do exist somewhere. And unfortunately, the atoms that compose the Sean Carroll are not in the prison yet. I don't know, we're at Hopkins, over East Coast. Which one's over there? Rikers? Is Rikers Island? I think that's New York. Yeah, so we can maybe we can do a trip to Rikers for Sean Carroll. But I'm being serious. Why the fuck? The entire structure of language is proven on the internet to the point where it's a direct geometric consequence. And it has been for 10 years. What are we doing? All I'm asking for is a little bit of money. But nobody cares. Just piss away Brad's life, destroy his health, ruin his property, and say, yep, we respect the Constitution. We're hardworking Americans. Or you're raging hypocrites. Hookah. I guess it's still up in the air, right? Proof isn't definitive to mathematicians at Harvard and Johns Hopkins, because they don't even know what the fuck math is. That's what I have for right now. Thank you for watching. See you on the next one. Pay me my money.